I'm Michael Forrester. I want to read you a short story from this book, The Goblin Child. It's called Sometimes They Don't Come Back. There's a full moon tonight, a sky full of stars, but they're hidden behind a dense bank of cloud. He's waited close to the drop point, concealed behind a tree since before 2300 hours, with nothing to read but the flight plan, or FP as everyone calls it. Transport was running ahead of schedule this evening, a bureaucratic foul-up by some secretarial pen pusher who was too busy filing her nails to concentrate on the less consequential matter of field operative safety. Net result, 2 hours waiting here until entry time. Do not pass go. Do not collect £200, he thinks. He watches the second hand on the face of the clock on Tesco's fancy tower. On the dot of 0100 hours, he snaps his fingers. The lights wink out one by one all the way down the street, just as if there had been a real power cut. At least Environment got their timing right, he thinks. He drops the night vision goggles down over his eyes and the world lights up again. For him, at least. Checking his equipment one last time, he moves over to the house, a Victorian Halls adjoining semi. Immediately, he sets to examining the poppies. That's points of potential entry if you're a rookie. The alarm flashes disdainfully at him. He'll wipe the superior smile off its face in a few moments. Electromechanical security is a doddle. Windows? Screw-locked. Too noisy to undo. The door? Deadlocked, bolted and chained. Pas de problème. He draws his obsidian from its sheath and touches its point to the lock. He waits for the familiar click as the latch complies with the instruction and the bolts draw back. The chain drops loose. One finger to the door is enough to make it swing back fractionally. He's small, doesn't need much room to get through. He takes his last breath of unpolluted air, crosses the physical threshold of the house, and simultaneously crosses that invisible boundary between honesty and dishonesty, goodness and turpitude, his world and theirs. He stands in the hall, if standing is the right word for someone who hovers 6 inches above the floor. He loathes the Queen's new imperial measurements and refuses to use them, even in official communications. Cubits in palms are good enough for his grandfather's grandfather, and they're good enough for him. The faint buzz from the pack on his back reassures him he's more than enough flight time to complete the assignment. Finally, he's forced to exhale and take his first breath of foul air. His stomach retches, and he fights to control the urge to vomit. He glances to his left through the open lounge door. A glass-topped coffee table covered with weekly magazines and mugs, torn envelopes and pens, the lid from a tub of strawberry Ben & Jerry's wet side down on the sofa. The infrared on the TV reminds no one at all of the machine's state of readiness. All the detritus of everyday human existence, and nothing whatsoever that makes him want to be part of it. He checks his FP once again. Can't remember the last time he'd made a mistake, but he checks it anyway. There are old pilots and there are bold pilots, as the old mess hall cliché goes, but there are no old, bold pilots. Almost noisily, he glides forward over the tiled floor, ingrained with dirt transferred from 6 generations of footwear, until he reaches the stairs and begins the upward phase of his journey. The pitch of his motors rises with the effort of gaining the necessary height. Research has already warned him in a carefully worded email about the feline. They'd become very specific about recording their advice last March, when an operative had been lost. Research had claimed they'd advised of the presence of the PAE, or potentially aggressive entity, as the bureaucratic style of the Ops Manual puts it. Operations swore blind they'd not been told. It really didn't matter who was lying. The field operative never came back. Everyone had become more careful after that, careful in practice, and more careful still in box ticking, triple carbon copying, back covering. He's over halfway up the stairs when he sees it on the landing. A full-sized tabby, standing maybe 2/3 of a cubit at the shoulder. Its back is stiff and arched, its fur bristling, it spits and snarls venomously. How can something he's never seen before hate him so much, he wonders. He hovers, draws the obsidian wand from its sheath again, and waits for the creature to make its move. The problem isn't that it will harm him, no matter how evil the filthy creature's intentions are towards him. It's that if he kills it, it will probably scream. He's learned over the years that freeze framing is a better option. But it takes real skill. You don't get 2 chances. As he anticipated, it leaps at him from the top stair, legs straight out, claws fully extended, mouth twisted in a howling grimace of unadulterated hatred. He returns no aggression. He's long since understood that emotion makes him less efficient. In a perfectly timed response, he dematerializes momentarily, then rematerializes, and twists round just in time to see it close its paws over the place he'd been occupying. Without hesitation, he flicks the wand down hard. He's gauged the energy level perfectly. The creature stops in mid-air, just above the 4th step from the hall floor, level with a picture of a lighthouse hanging slightly askewed on the bossed wallpaper. He continues to hold the wand steady until he's sure the animal is frozen. Then he lowers it carefully in the direction of the hall floor. Its body hesitates for a moment, then follows the trajectory that the wand has described, coming to rest silently at the foot of the stairs. It will wake there sometime later during the night. The whole operation has taken a little over 3 seconds. Time allowed for in the FP, but time he would have preferred not to have expended. He waits a moment to reassure himself the household is still sleeping, then turns his attention back to his ascent. Just before the top of the stairs, he dons his oxygen mask, probably unnecessary at this altitude, but standard procedure for all structures above ground level, and anyway, it helps a bit with the smell. And it continues to the landing. 4 doors, all closed. He consults the FP again. Straight in front, bathroom, no relevance. Next to it, adult bedroom, avoid entry. Next to that, airing cupboard, heat source, extreme danger of death. And next to that, the child's bedroom. Target, female, 4 years. He returns the FP to its case and checks again for sounds of wakefulness anywhere in the house. Then he proceeds to the children's bedroom, points the wand at the handle and blows on it until it swings gently back. He hovers in the doorway, peering through the night sight. 2 beds, not bunks, right angles to each other against the wall. Thomas the Tank Engine printed on one quilt, Barbie on the other. A shelf lined with books, a Paddington Bear boot perched on top of the tower of plastic castle. 2 action men, limbs entwined in a faintly obscene pattern. Postman Pat and an overstuffed Teddy survey it all non-judgmentally from the window ledge. He enters the room. The human stench is more powerful now, the oxygen mask not helping much. Human pups have a far stronger scent than the full-growns. It's evolution's way of ensuring that parents can detect them at a distance. As instructed by the flight plan, he heads for the Barbie bed, sees the target, hesitates. The operation disgusts him, however many times he repeats it. However often he laughs with the other field operatives in the mess hall after the missions are over, it's still sickening, soul-blackening work. He might as well be a cesspit cleaner. At the bed, he descends towards the sleeping child. Her body's covered by blankets, only her head is showing, long blonde hair cascading over the pillow. However often he does this, they still disgust him, these kids. Warm-blooded, elephantine, and swathed in far too much flesh. Always they seem to sleep with their mouths open. He has no alternative but to fly straight through the path of her breath. He tries to time it so that she's breathing in as he does, but he can't avoid the out-breath when he lands on the pillow. He gets giddy with nausea. And he's a pro. And he's learned to control it. All but the stomach retching, that is. That's pure reflex. And now follows the act of defilement that has long since cost him his soul. Of course, he'll laugh about it with the rest of the squadron when he gets back, pretends he finds it funny, no matter how loudly the last vestiges of his conscience scream at him. He steadies his breathing, bends all four knees till he's crouching. Latex gloves will give him some relief from the impact of handling human flesh. Latex, one of the few human inventions for which he acknowledges gratitude. With both hands he reaches under the pillow, finds the fuel nugget immediately, a large, nicely rounded piece. He knows by the feel of it in his hands that it will transmogrify perfectly. He tugs gently. The child stirs, but does not wake. Mercifully, she rolls over, turning her face away from him. With the removal of the pressure of her head, the enamel ore comes away easily, and he glides backwards with it, in his arms and down to the carpet. Rises again, drawing the compensation from his backpack. What a euphemism! What kind of compensation do they call this? A coin of the realm, £1 sterling, for an enamel nugget that will keep a full-sized thaumaturgic generator operating for a week. OK, so it's Treasury's responsibility to set the exchange rate. Mid-19th century, 1 groat. Mid-20th, sixpence. Now, £1. But even after all these years, even after so many transactions, he still finds it hard to reconcile himself to the fundamental unfairness of the exchange. He suffocates his whimpering morality, draws the coin from his pack, unfolds it, rises to the bed, holding it in front of him like an enormous tray, and carefully slides it under the pillow. Is momentarily confused as it clicks against something hard. And then he understands. Realizes that he is now confronted with the crowning glory of his career. That moment whose very existence is disputed daily over endless jars of nectar in the mess halls of every airfield in the land. This is it. The fabled double exchange. In the whole of his career, he's never met a single operative who actually claims to have made a double exchange. He doesn't think anyone believes they ever really happen. He's overcome with excitement. Shaking, he can barely control himself. He has to steady his hands to reach round behind the coin and fix his grasp on the second fuel nugget. Now he draws it carefully around the coin and once again balances it as he lowers himself to the floor. He stands back, shaking his head in disbelief at the scale of the evening's transaction. He's overwhelmed by a surge of guilt, for he's no further coin to exchange for the second tooth. But his conscience is all but dead, and the guilt is rapidly displaced by the thought that the operation plan contained no reference to there being a second nugget. Of course it didn't. How would the department know? The computer programs make no allowance for statistical aberrations. He knows already that he will not report it. The second fuel nugget is his, and he's going to make himself fabulously wealthy. But now he sees the problem: how to carry 2 nuggets when his pack is designed for 1. Quickly he decides and places the first nugget in the pack. The weight is considerable, but he is not daunted. He will carry the second in his arms and will conceal it somewhere near the extraction point before transport arrives. When he's certain he remains undiscovered, he'll return and break it down to sell piece by piece on the black market. He cannot begin even to get his head around its value. He bends all 4 knees again, leans forward and lifts. The effort is phenomenal. Mentally, he instructs the motors of his gossamers to lift him. Their pitch rises until they're screaming, but the weight is too great and he remains floor-bound. Eventually he gives up, reconciles himself to the fact that he will have to drag the second nugget, cubit by cubit, across the floor, down the stairs. He looks around for something to serve as a harness. He sees what he needs on the bed and sets the nugget down in order to rise and pluck a single strand of golden hair from the target's head. As he tugs on the strand, the follicle snaps out of the skull and without warning slaps across his face. It's enough to disturb the target. Though she doesn't wake, she turns and is subjected to a full frontal blast of her breath that sends him spinning backwards with both the airflow and the stench. Still he clings on to the hair, spinning out of control, downwards towards the carpet. He hits it with more force than he should, much more force. He's concerned the crash landing will have damaged his gossamers, but no matter now. Dazed, he picks himself up, checks his obsidian is undamaged, and then places it carefully inside his flight jacket. Q Division will have his hide if he brings back any more broken ones. Satisfied as to its safety, he winds the hair several times round the fuel nugget, binding it firmly. He then twists the other end repeatedly round his own body and across his gossamer wings, rendering them inoperable even if they are undamaged. But no matter, they're useless to him now anyway. He checks the knot one last time to ensure the nugget is indeed bound firmly to his body. He turns towards the open door. It's then he sees the cat. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to check out The Goblin Child, click the link attached to this video and it would take you to the Amazon site. See you next time.